Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 85 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. In this episode, we are going to discuss the 4 pillars of laying a great foundation for fundamentals of marksmanship. We just finished up a long range shooting school that finished on Wednesday, and it's always amazing to spend time with students and to learn what is getting them up to speed and what they've picked up on in the class and things that have helped them. And one of the things that is a big deal is actually building your foundation on solid ground. So we're going to discuss some upcoming episodes in which we're going to label the 4 pillars for laying a great foundation for the fundamentals of marksmanship. So thank you so much for joining us, but without further ado, here we go. So this podcast is proudly brought to you by Wolf Precision Inc., home of the Ace and some of the most advanced rifles in the world. So we'd like to thank Wolf Precision for proudly sponsoring this show and being a part of it to make it happen. All right, so diving into the 4 pillars or laying a great foundation for the fundamentals of marksmanship. So I'm very blessed in the fact that I get to spend my time at the shooting range with clients from basically around the world and from tons of different backgrounds. And I learn a lot about the art of teaching and watching different things that work and don't work for different customers, as well as all of the really cool things that we get to be part of as these customers learn and grow. One of the things that really struck a chord with me with this last class that we just finished up on Wednesday was we had 2 older gentlemen, probably in their, maybe in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, been hunting and shooting their whole lives, have killed countless big game animals around the country, have harvested with both rifle and bow, and certainly have killed more big game animals than I have. However, though, after the first day of class, they came and said, unbelievable, all the things that they thought they knew, all of these little details that we're sharing, all of these things that make a huge difference are there. And everything that they thought they knew, a lot of it was wrong or just gray areas. And so they've built this foundation for shooting on soft ground, on sand. And so you struggle and you work and you struggle and you work. And no matter how much you work on these fundamentals, because you've laid that foundation not on solid ground, there's a price to pay for that. And what was really cool is we spent the first day in class, and we went, of course, our class is set up, we do the classrooms in the morning, and we do range time in the afternoon. But the first day of class, we really get into the fundamentals of marksmanship. And not just the fundamentals, but really the little details, these tiny things that matter. And I consider them almost like the 4 corners or the 4 pillars to laying a great foundation for the fundamentals of marksmanship. You know, so we've got to get these pillars established on a solid platform. And the pillars sort of work like this. So if you think about like holding a house up in the 4 corners, we want these foundations laid deep and we want them on solid ground. The first pillar that I think is really important is just simply the setup itself. Over the years, I've got a chance to watch thousands of students come through the school, and I pick up on the things that they're doing different with the bag and just how important the setup is. I mean, I even go as far as to say, look, if you're going to the range and having a bad day, things aren't going well, just stop shooting. Step back and look at your setup. The little things like the rear bag being twisted or a straight line falling off an edge or the butt pad or the heel or toe of the rifle digging in or catching on and pushing. There's all these little minute things that happen just simply in the setup alone that can cause you all kinds of heartache and just struggle to get good working and good shooting groups out there. The second thing is when you're laying and you're talking about laying, these 4 pillars that you're going to build on to become a great shooter is preparing to take the shot. you, the shooter, with the rifle, all the things that you must do to prepare mentally and physically to take that shot. The third pillar that you're going to set up on is learning the art of firing the perfect shot. So when you go through preparation, you still have to fire the rifle. Now, I always warn people that bad preparation, or when you talk about pillar number 2, if you don't get that right, the problems continue on. So you pass off that problem or that weak pillar right on to your firing of the perfect shot. Same thing with your setup. So the third pillar, and which we're going to talk about in this upcoming episode, is going to be firing the perfect shot. And then the last pillar that's going to be the foundation, that's going to be set on the solid foundation of really becoming a world-class shooter, is follow-through. All the things that really you have to do right, and all the things you have to pay attention to, things you have to let naturally happen without you negatively influencing it. Because let's face it, the rifle will shoot perfectly fine if we don't touch it. It's only when we get involved in it that we have a tendency to screw everything up, right? And so that follow-through is the fourth corner. And then when you take those 4 corners, the tabletop that goes on those 4 pillars is what we call a mental checklist. And getting yourself in a system that checks each of those before you shoot. And so we're going to work on this over the next couple of podcasts and try to dive into one in just a lot more detail. The reason being is, and I'm going to have to contact the students because they took all their targets with them, of course, and I'll try to take some pictures, but the students that came through the class, the very first groups out of every single student at 100 yards, prone with a bipod, some were in the 1s, some were in the 2s, none were over 0.3. That's incredible. The 2 older gentlemen that were in the class come off the rifles and was like, oh my God, I've never shot like that in my life. And, the second day came around for the shooting school. So the shooting school is 3 days. There's just so much subjects to cover. And at the end of the day, like we started class on day 3, they said, oh my God, all the things that we learned on day 2, like they're shooting gallon water jugs just for fun, of course, at 1,000 yards. One shot on a 10 by 14 inch plate, which a 10-inch ring is about the size of a 1,000-yard bench ring. At 1,000 yards, about a 5-inch group on a 10-inch plate at 1,000 yards. You really have to be fundamentally sound to do that. We have a life-size coyote out there, skinned, by the way, what the actual body of the coyote is, and just hitting it over and over again. A water jug is about 8 inches by 9 inches. We're varmint hunters, so we like to throw some fun stuff out there that blows up or pops when you shoot it. So they're just for some of the little things that we do. We have some Top Gun hats and some other stuff that we do. Fun shooting. But you think about having a shooter that's never shot anything beyond 200 yards, and by day 2, they're shooting an 8 by 9 inch water jug, and one of them hit it on the first shot. That's amazing. And again, the feedback from the students, who, by the way, very well educated, seasoned hunters, smart people, laid their foundation on soft ground and didn't really understand the pillars that it all sets on. And the comments after each day was the amazement of all the things that they thought they knew, the house that they were building on, the pillars that were holding it all up were all wrong. And how all these little things in these areas just totally changed their shooting forever. So they assumed, of course, it's a long-range shooting school, and they thought, hey, we'll come here, we're going to learn some stuff, this is going to be a lot of fun, and it is. But they came away with just what they thought they were going to come and get with 100 times, changing their shooting forever, changing how they shoot, how they approach with shooting, how they think of shooting, and shot like they've never shot in their entire adult lives. Actually, shooting with a bipod and shooting groups that really should be for bench rest only. That's how great they shot. And I didn't shoot the guns for them. They had to do all the work. But it's about laying these proper foundations and having a way to make sure that these 4 pillars are solid before you shoot. And so I'm going to go into this into much greater detail on the next couple podcasts and talk about this. because really I want to try to help you get the most you can out of your rifle, get the most you can out of your shooting, and really have fun. Don't make shooting a frustrating sport. Don't go to the range and leave like, this sucks. I know I can do better than this. And let us help you. There's no charge for the podcast, of course. This is something that we do. We take time out of every week just to try to pass on, hopefully, what's great information to help you. It's sort of our way of giving back to the community that has changed our lives and allowed us to be in the industry that we're in and enjoy spending time with you at the range. So I hope you tune in for these podcasts. They'll be coming up next. They'll be our next series. And I think it's really important to dive into this much deeper, just simply because of the life-changing effect it had on the last class. And it was really nice to get the feedback in almost like a real-world application of what they thought they knew and how all these little things that we're teaching turned it on its head and really changed their type of shooting. So looking forward to it. We're going to dive into it next week in the podcast itself, with the first one being proper setup of the rifle. I do want to say a quick thank you to Trigger Tech. They're a proud sponsor of the show. We really appreciate them being part of the program. We do use their triggers in our custom rifles here, as well as we have them in our showroom. You can come and try them out. We actually have a trigger mechanism that it's a 2-stage. You can come in and work the bolt and try them out. But I'm a big fan of Trigger Tech simply because they're very easy to adjust. They're user-friendly. They're a safe trigger. They're a roller bearing design that allows you to have a safe self-cleaning trigger. So if you want a great trigger for your rifle, or if you're building a custom rifle, stop over to triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com today. We'd also like to thank MDT, proud sponsor of the show. We have lots of their stocks here in the showroom, and they just sent us a couple more, along with the new HNT 26, which is on its way. So thank you so much, MDT, for all the help you've been through the years and for the stocks that you put up on the wall for us here for the customers to see. We really appreciate it. Also, I wanted to announce that we are putting up our long-range shooting school dates for 2022. They are going to be limited for next year, 4 students in a class still. You can register for those now. We have people signing up. So we'd love to invite you out and join us here for next year for 2022. They are limited. We aren't going to do as many shooting schools because our business is growing on the other end. So stop over to wolfprecision.net. That's wolfprecision.net, and you can check out all of the details there. So I'll keep you up to date. The next podcast that we're going to start into is our 4 pillars for laying a great foundation for the fundamentals of marksmanship. That will start next week. Looking forward to having you. And I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to join us here at the show. If you like the show, if you don't mind sharing it, we really appreciate that. If you don't mind leaving us a nice review either on our Facebook page or on a Google search or even on the forum or hosting network that you're listening to this podcast on, that really helps a lot with the ratings and helps us here as well, getting the podcast out and about, hopefully getting good information out there to great customers and great shooters. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you're listening to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.